Just a second, guys. I'm fixing a few things, and I'll be on here in just a second. All right, folks. Looks like we are live. I'm excited because I've been wanting to do this for a long time. And if you're watching this later on in some of the maybe the bonus section of the course, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you get a lot out of this little session. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. This is going to be just a session where I'm answering some of your questions about writing guitar solos. Now, I cover this extensively in my brand new course, The Creative Guitarist, and you can find that by going to ericbeatty.com/TCG. That'll take you right to the course, where you can learn more information about it, how to create more melodic, more expressive, more emotional solos. And when I was creating this course, the story behind this is I did a poll, and I asked some people in my email newsletter what they wanted to see from this course. And I already had some things in mind that I wanted to present. Unfortunately, some of the answers they gave me, some of the ideas they had, didn't make it into the course, and that's why I wanted to do this as kind of a supplement to that. And I thought, well, why not bring some of you guys along here on YouTube and on Twitch and places like that, so that we can kind of discuss this together and just have kind of a little hangout session talking about that. And before I go any further, let me check, make sure so that we can kind of discuss this together. And sound is good. It sounds like it is. Just a second here, so that we can kind of discuss this together. And so a little bit of lag looks like. Going on the actual studios here and see if I can hear anything going on. So a little bit of lag looks like. Okay, let me adjust my volume. It doesn't seem like I'm coming through very good. Check 1 2, check 1 2, testing 1 2, testing 1 2, check 1 2. I'm going to back it off just a little bit in case when I play guitar it doesn't work too good. Testing 1 2. Okay, I can hear that. Let's check Twitch real quick. Make sure I'm hearing that. Sounds like my computer's trying to work pretty hard. Sounds like my computer's trying to work. Okay. Okay, so I'm muted. I think I'm good. Feel free to leave anything in the chat below if you're watching this live, and we'll get right on into this. So let me go ahead and see if I can import an image here. This is what I'm going to kind of go off of, and that is simply the actual poll that I sent. I took some screenshots of it, and that's what are going to be kind of like some of our discussion points. We might not get to all of them today, but I'm going to try to hit quite a few of them and give you some examples of ideas when writing and creating your own guitar solos and even playing them, okay? So let me pull that up real quick. I'm going to go, should be them, yes, okay. So I just need to add an actual, tell you what, let me go to this screen, and I want to hide, which one is it? I want to hide, is it this one? Yes. Let me hide that real quick because I'm going to import an image. And let's see here, image, add source. We're going to add a new source and call it TCG. What else? A poll. Answers or questions, I guess. Okay, add a source. Let me browse the image here. It's going to be, should be right here. Okay, this should be it. Let me resize this. Hopefully you will be able to see this fairly well in this main box here. And what I will do is I will, there's that again. I always forget which button it is to do this. I will scroll through these as we go along. Okay, so that's awesome. You can see me now, and we can see that. That's a pretty cool little thing there. Okay, so here are some of the questions from the main questionnaire that I had for this course. And the reason I did this is because I did a poll before on another one of my courses, Bluegrass Guitar Essentials. And that poll was a phenomenal success. It really gave me an idea of what people were looking for. And a lot of people participated in it. Unfortunately, not as many people participated in this survey, but it still yielded quite a few good ideas as far as that's concerned. And I've also got, I don't know where exactly I saved that. Actually, I think I do. I've got a whole nother section of answers I'm going to be going over. Where's that at? I just did this the other day. Apologize for this. A whole other section that I'm going to be doing. I just had to find it wherever I put it. I thought I put it in the folder, but I don't see it here. Anyway, it's a screenshot of some of the other questions that I had put down as an FAQ in the actual book. When I was writing the book, the course curriculum and the material for this course, I had some ideas for some questions in mind that I wanted to address anyway. And I'll have to find that later because I don't remember where I put that. But anyway, let's start with looking at some of these responses here. Okay, I got 7 responses for these questions. One of which, let's just read the first 4 here. Okay, so I've got, what aspects of guitar soloing are you currently struggling with? Please be as specific as possible. Okay, so here are 4 answers. Developing solos that sound good. Currently, I just follow the melody line with a few embellishments. Now, that's a really good way to do it. Number 2, I can do the regular neck, but going down the neck for the high notes give me problems. So that's another great question, another great idea there. Some people struggle with getting past, let's just say, the first 5 notes of the fretboard, and learning how to get past that little bitty area that's at the beginning. They don't know what to do after that. Okay. The next one is I have trouble coordinating my picking hand with my Freddy hand. That's another good observation, another good idea we can kind of look at. Playing good licks when the music is going from one chord to the next chord. Not just 1, 4, 5, he's talking about chord progressions, but 1, 3, 6 like Old Chunk of Coal, or 1, 6, 3 like Amanda by Boston, or the Bluegrass Civil War song Lorena. So he gives me a few examples here. Now, I don't know, I'm not familiar with some of these, but I know what the chord progressions he's talking about. Trying to hit good chord melodies, good chord tones. So that's something I do address for sure in the Creative Guitarist. And the other answer here we had was just a solid solo. Now, let's just go ahead and take a peek at the other. I'm looking at my stream instead of actual stream software here. Let's take a peek at the rest of these. So, using scales is another one. And no solos as of yet. Rhythm guitar is more than I can handle at the moment. I know what you mean. Okay, so I did it again. Let me go back here. And okay. So using scales, I'll tell you what, let's just do this and then I will squeeze it. I don't know if I can squeeze it any smaller than that. There we go. That'll be good enough. There we go. And then I can stretch that out a little bit. Okay. So here's the ones we're going to kind of deal with, or at least, one at a time we can go, back and forth on. Hey, Howard. Good to see you, buddy. Developing solos that sound good. Currently, I just follow the melody line with a few embellishments. Now, I'm not sure I might be able to show this here a little bit. Let me just do this. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, so let me share my screen with you here. Is this what I'm looking for? This should share my screen, I think. Wow, do it again. So that should share my screen. Okay. So let me go over here to the table of contents. This is the table of contents of the course curriculum. Okay, so this will give you an idea of what we're talking about. Now he's talking about, I just follow the melody with some embellishments. Okay, so some good ideas that I have in this course deals with melody quite a bit, actually. Some famous melodies here, and here's a whole section on melody. Okay, so here's a whole section on phrasing. There's a part 1. There's also a part 2 later on, and some famous melodies and some ideas for how to kind of sing melodies, things like that. So he says he just follows a melody and he kind of embellishes on that. So what is that about? Let's go back and discuss that for a second, okay? If I can get my screen right. I'm completely getting lost and all that. I wish I had my second monitor. It would make it a whole lot easier. All right, so here we go. We've got, looks like I am peaking a little bit on the vocals, so I'm going to turn that down a little bit. So let me go over here. Currently I've got like a pretty high gain guitar. That fan is going crazy. Hopefully my stream is okay. I've got a pretty high gain right now guitar. Okay, so let's just say we wanted to do a solo. Let me bring that back up here. Developing solos that sound good. Currently, I just follow the melody line with a few embellishments. That's a really good one. Like I said in the curriculum there, we talk about phrasing. We talk about famous melodies. So let's just get some ideas of famous melodies. That is actually a good way to kind of think about soloing, and that is you find a melody that you know. Okay, so for example, let's take one that's in public domain so I don't have to worry about my channel getting demonetized or anything like that. If I'm in the key of G, let's go to A. Let's think of a good melody. Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Why not? Okay. Once again, there's nothing wrong with taking a melody and embellishing on it. As a matter of fact, that would be my first suggestion, and that's one thing that I advocate highly in the course, The Creative Guitarist, is that you look at some melodies and you kind of find ways to spice those melodies up. And that's one great thing to do when you'll hear people all the time playing songs that just sound so lyrical, so vocal, so melodical. And a lot of times those ideas come from their head, something they've heard inside their brain, so their mind that's just rattling around in there, and they want to figure out a way to convey that. Now, some of that, part of that is using the scales. Okay, so if I just started with an A major scale. Okay, so from this A to this A, I've got 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. The octave. So I can take some of those notes and find my melody. Now sometimes singing it, like I said like I wrote down in the table of contents there in that section, singing it will help you find those notes. So if I'm trying to find Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, da, 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 so sometimes you have to find your way to it. Da, da, da. And I would suggest trying to memorize the sound of that back and forth and sing along with it. Just going within the notes of that scale, okay? So, in other words, staying within the same shape. Now, this also is covering kind of the idea that we discussed a minute ago that the person said was trying to find their way around higher frets. So right now we're going to start with the lower frets and just say, now what's that next? Now, ba, ba. Okay, so that's up there. Ba. I recognize it was that one because I just heard it and it's the same note. So I'm going up, then I'm coming back down. And we got a ba-da. So let's just do those notes. Oh, that's wrong. Now that note. Ba-da, ba-da. Just looking at the scale we just did. If we just take that, you could do a whole day's worth of lessons on how to make that sound better. Because if you think of it, a lot of solos are famous melodies. I mean, you think of Sweet Child of Mine, that intro riff, a lot of riffs are melodical. You think of Back in Black, not necessarily the solo, but the beginning of that. If you think of Freebird, that part at the very end where they begin that solo, that's a melody. That's something that's in our heads when we listen to it. And somebody might have started with a scale on that, but then now that we've heard it over and over, it becomes a melody that's in our mind. So for this example, we're just taking notes in that major scale, memorizing that shape, and only sticking to the notes of that scale and that shape to find that melody. That takes some of the guesswork out of it because we don't have to worry about, okay, which note comes next, where's that note located. You pretty much have all the notes you need in that little area. And even if it's a note outside the scale, you can try to find that note, and it might be just a kind of a passing tone, what it's called, a passing tone, or if you prefer, an anomaly, just something that just happens to happen on that part of the scale, but it's not part of the scale itself. So the next thing I would do is when you're thinking about this is you take that melody, we know that song, it's memorized, we know the pattern, we've got it under our fingers. The next thing I would probably do, myself personally, I would start trying to make it sound better. But one thing I would suggest you do first is learn it in a different octave. So this is a higher octave. We also have a low A note here. Okay, so we can learn this one of two ways. We can learn it in this area. It's kind of an awkward shape, or we can learn it in this area. This is kind of similar to the one we just did. Okay, so we can find that here. Or we could try it here. Right? And so now we have that shape under our hands. We have those notes under our fingers. And we can decide, okay, how can we make those sound better? So some of the parts of phrasing that I talk about in the book, let me go back and kind of show you this. Some of those phrasing parts that I talk about have to do with, you know, it would be easier if I just open the book and go from there. Have to do with these different techniques that we're talking about. Okay, so they have to do with, where are you at? This should be pulling, there we go. Okay, come on. Waiting on you. I do not know what's going on there. Doesn't want to show it. Pardon me on this. Do not know what's happening here. Just quit the program and open it again. How's the stream doing? How are we doing on chat, guys? We got anything going on there? Nothing extra there. How we doing sound? How's the stream doing? Okay, sounds good there. Okay, that's closed. Let's see if we can open this up again. Bear with me, guys. Okay. That's not the one. That'll work. That'll work for what I'm needing. Got so many stinking documents open on preview. It's crazy. Work. There we go. Okay, so let me find it. Phrasing, part 1. Okay, so if I look here and I share my screen once again, let's see if this works. There we go. You can now see this example of phrasing, and some of these ideas have to do with some techniques for expressive playing and phrasing, such as string bending, vibrato, hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, string rakes, whammy bar techniques, all that kind of stuff. Now, I don't go into depth. I don't go into very much depth on these in the course, but I do talk about it, and I do, kind of do some of these things myself on the solo that I actually analyze in the course, and that I kind of work on writing myself. So, phrasing part 1 has to deal with some of this stuff, and then, like it says here in Module 3, I cover phrasing part 2. We go over that again. So, for example, keep phrasing at the forefront of your mind when creating a solo. Here are some questions to ask yourself in order to further understand what musical statements you want to convey. How do you want to express your ideas? Would one technique work better than another in certain instances? For example, slides instead of hammer-ons and pull-offs. And another thing you can ask is, how do other creative guitarists phrase their solos? Another great way of learning phrasing is thinking outside your area of expertise. Here's what that looks like. Study famous vocalists. Study famous woodwind musicians. Study famous violin players. See how they phrase their lines. With an instrument that's different, they might phrase them differently. For example, piano, they don't do vibrato. What would they do in place of that? They might do a little slur. They might do a run up the I was going to say up the neck. Pianos don't have necks. A run up the keys. So, in one way, that's very good, because that forces you to be even more creative by saying, okay, if I'm going to do this like a piano, I have to think like a pianist. I don't have vibrato at my disposal. I can't have slides. I don't have bends. So it forces a limitation on you, which causes you then to think even more creatively. Okay, so this is really good. All right, so there's a ton of different ideas on this, but that's what I was just wanting to kind of show you guys. Is the main part is these common techniques that we talk about on the guitar. Now, if I go back, I think we kind of studied some of these things. Using scales, solos, melody line. I may have looked at this on a different... I've got some more shots I was going to share with this, but right now we're kind of dealing with this. It may have something to do with one of those other resources that I had in mind. Let's see. Would that be this? Okay, it's a different thing that I may try to show here in a little bit. I may go over some more of these, but for now, let's go ahead and go back to what I was talking about. So, for example, you can take what we just did. Like I said, I would go for that first octave, then I would try to find the next octave, and then after that, what I would want to do is make sure that there's nobody chatting here. Okay, we have some people watching. I'll get to you in just a second. From there, I would go from these shapes and these lines and say, okay, what do I want to do as far as making it sound better? So instead of going... So I could do a couple things there. I could do a slide. And I slid from that 1, 2, 3, 4th note. I slid from the note within that scale. I could even slide from that 3rd note. You have to watch out there because your finger needs to slide with that on the G string, so you're going to have to mute that. Might even want to slide with that pinky because that puts me here. If I've got the first finger here and the middle finger, it's kind of hard to reach back. Okay. The other thing is now we're running to areas of I'm feeling limited. So how do I find this note somewhere else? Okay, so. So now I'm getting outside that, that little box shape or that little first 5 fret syndrome here that I'm, you kind of hold on to because that's all you ever know. You do this by exploring. It's not just memorizing scale shapes. You explore using one of your most important tools at your disposal. Not your fingers, not your guitar, but your ears, okay? And I stress this heavily every chance I can in the Creative Guitarist course. You really got to rely on your ears and have a good sense of what that note is. Okay, so we slid to this note. We slid to the next note. And if you'll notice at the very end, I did another phrasing technique, which I use probably more than anything, and that is vibrato. You really want a good vibrato. And the way to get a good vibrato is not using your finger. I'll push with your finger. It's using your wrist to do this right here, this motion. Because if you put your finger down and you do your wrist this way, then your finger has to move. Your finger's going to move regardless. So if I just take that wrist, kind of grab this gently, and pull, that gives me that little sound. I used to, one of the best ways I learned vibrato was watching Eric Clapton. And he is, at least in that video that I watched, he did vibrato where he pushed up. But I've gotten a tendency now to where I usually, unless I'm bending something, I usually pull down. Okay. So let's get back to that in a second. Let me get with some of the chat here. So we've got Skyprop, first time viewer. I'm checking this out. Thank you so much for watching, Skyprop. We're talking about answering your solo questions, and by your I mean a lot of the people's questions that I polled in a survey when I created the course that I've been talking about here, the Creative Guitarist. You can go to ericbeatty.com/TCG to find more out about that, or ericbeatty.com/courses to see all the courses that I have available. So welcome, Skyprop. Thank you so much for being a first-time viewer. If you like what you're seeing, please make sure to click that like button so more people can be aware of it. It can get out to more people. Guitar Edux, thanks so much for watching again, man. You was on the last time, I think. Guitar Edux says, I find it hard to come up with quicker melodies that don't just sound like guitar licks. That's a good example. Let's address that here in just a second. Hello, Skyprop. Right, like using cliche guitar tricks in a melody or solo. I understand where you're coming from there. So let's go with that. Let's try to build on what we've already established here. So you're going over, let's just say you want to build on top of melodies. Now right now I'm not thinking about licks. I'm thinking about melodies. So I just slid down from there. You could even, if you wanted to, bend that note. For a little more solo, for a little more soul, and then also you can come down on that bridge pickup to get more bite out of it. Like you're doing too. Get a little bit of a pinch harmonic if you can in there. So all kinds of different things you can do phrasing wise. You're thinking of bends, you're thinking of vibrato, you're thinking of slides, you're thinking of hammer-ons, pull-offs, or a little embellishments. Okay. And another thing I like to do, if I really want to particularly put an emphasis on a note, is I rake it. And mostly that's my hand muting all the notes except for the one I want to hit. Okay. So as far as licks, I could put a lick in here, you know. That's not bad to do that, but the important thing you want to do is establish a melody first so that people know what the song is supposed to sound like. And they hear it, and it kind of is ingrained in their minds. Oh, I know what this is now. And then you can kind of go off on a tangent, so long as you go back to the melody every now and then, even if it's an embellishment of the melody, and you can hear that melody somewhere in there. So coming up with quicker melodies, like I said before, most of that is, it's not only your ear, like listening to what's in your mind and trying to find that on the guitar. A lot of that is listening to some of your favorite music and some people who have melodies that you like. And I'll go ahead and give you a tip on this. And this is one thing I really stress and advocate in the course is one of my favorite players. Now, I talked about this a while ago about looking outside your genre, looking to woodwind instrumentalists or violinists or piano players or the other things that I mentioned. One of which was, well, I didn't forgot it. What was it I was just saying on that one? Vocalists. The one guy I look to for melody more than anybody is not a guitar player. He's a saxophone player, and most of you guys probably know him, and that's Kenny G. I mean, the man is, I call him the king of melodies. I mean, he knows melodies like nobody else I've heard. Amazing stuff. And if you'll just take that idea and listen to people who have good melodies, popular songs that have charted, or even solos that have a melody to it. When you hear a solo come on the radio, you know it's that song. Why? Because it may be a chord progression, like Journey's Don't Stop Believing, that piano chord progression. You know what that is, but there's some melody happening there as well. So listen to some of your favorite songs, and what happens is you begin to, something inside of you that you want to create wants to come out, and it comes in the form of ideas, and those ideas most of the time have a sound to them, and that sound is in your mind, and you think, okay, first thing I do is what key am I in? Well, it sounds like when I'm humming it sounds like I'm in A. Okay, so then from there, it may take a minute, because a lot of times with me, I don't have perfect pitch, so a lot of times when I play a note, everything else goes out the window, and I have to sit there for a second and recollect my thoughts. And so I'll get one or two notes past that, and then I'll start working on that and go up the scale or up the melody that I'm hearing, finding the notes where they need to be. And then from there, I begin working on that melody that's in my head. Chances are, 9 times out of 10, if I don't start with chords, I usually start with some kind of melody. And I would advocate you capturing that idea as well. Get your smartphone out, whether you do it as a video or if you do it as an audio file. I like to do it as a video file so I can watch what I'm doing later on. So I've got all these video files saved on my computer, so I can always go back to those. But if you're comfortable doing an audio file, that's fine. Record that. Get it down so you don't forget it. It's very important. It's key to kind of coming up with things. You have to have like a library of these ideas, and sometimes ideas won't work together, and sometimes you can copy and paste this idea over here and then that idea over there, and they begin to form a melody for you. Okay, so they begin to work that way. I hope that answers your question. Nice. I listen to other instruments too for ideas in general. That's good, Scott Prop. The more training you can give your ears, the more exercise you can give your ears, the better. So let's look at another example here. And by the way, is my sound good? Am I clipping? Is everything sounding good on the guitar? I hope that answers your question about, cliche licks and trying to find better melodies. The best way to do it is to listen to a lot of music, of melodies that you like, and just practice, thinking of those melodies in your mind, practice creating new melodies, or maybe even taking those melodies and branching off of them, kind of like what we're doing here in this song. All right, so let's look at another suggestion here. Developing solos that sound good. Currently, I just follow the melody line with a few embellishments. That's what we just talked about, okay? So the next part we're going to be covering is, let's see, I can do the regular neck, but going down on the neck for high notes gives me problems, okay? So I kind of hinted on that just then. Some of that, if you just use your ear and don't be afraid to hit notes that are outside of shape, they're still inside the scale. But they're outside your comfort zone. Inside the scale, outside your comfort zone. That's a good thing. That forces you to kind of think in other areas. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, this is good. I can go back down to where I'm comfortable. But if you really want to branch out of that, that fear of being in just the first 5 frets and not venturing on beyond that, is what you would do is just find the shape that this consists of. Okay, so from there, let's find the other notes. Okay, so we can find those notes and just start going down the major scale now. And we can find the next note that's outside of this area, so we find it here. Okay, so a good way to do this is, once again, you can find scale books, or you can look online for major scale shapes or minor scale shapes, or pentatonic shapes even, and you can find these ideas and get familiar with these shapes. Right now, I'm trying to kind of connect all the shapes in my mind. I'm using the main scale shapes, it's the 5 pattern method, which is, excuse me, is mostly called the caged method, okay, based around chord shapes, open chord shapes. And I don't have time to cover all that. There's a lot of stuff online about cage shapes and cage method. But I'm using just the main 5 major scale shapes to find where I'm at on the fretboard. I'm trying to rememorize those things, and so I can get better at navigating the fretboard. But as far as venturing out, that's what you kind of have to do is you find those scale shapes also that you can attach a chord to. So, for example, here's an A. This is also an A, even though it's an F shape. A lot of times I visualize chords like this, short chords, what I call them, because it's only part of the string set. And I think, okay, what notes do I have available to me? In that string, and you will go string by string mode. And I would just kind of see my way around there and see the chords here, and I would be safe in knowing that I could hold this chord shape and kind of see notes around that. The next chord shape would be kind of a modified D shape. Okay, and I could. Usually I don't play it like this. I like to play it like this and not even play the top string. I just know that what notes are there. Okay, next shape. And so now look how far I've come. I've come all the way from, like, let's just say the 2nd fret, all the way up here to 12th fret. So working your way up the neck is not a tough thing. It's not a difficult thing. It's just you got to know kind of some ideas and some methods. And one of the ways is to look at the shapes, the chord shapes, visualize those, and kind of see what your way around, and then kind of map out the actual scale shapes to those. Because all chords are part of a scale, right? So if this is an A chord, this is an A chord with different shape. Those notes are part of the whole entire scale. There's a 1, there's a 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a 5. And another 1. Chords are just part of scales. Okay, there are notes taken from the scale. Usually the 1, the 3, and the 5 of the chord of the scale will yield you a major chord. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1. And start over again. 2, 3. 5. And that's where you get arpeggios from as well. And this brings me to the next question, I think, where it says I can do the regular. No, it says I have trouble coordinating my picking hand. That's not that one. It's the one after that. Playing. It's the fourth point down here. Playing good licks when playing good licks when the music is going from one chord to the next chord. Using arpeggios and notes of a chord, 1, 3, 5, and a 7, whether it be dominant 7 or major 7 or minor 7. Let's see. 7, minor 7, dominant 7, minor 7, kind of same. Those chords, those intervals of that chord, the 1, the 3, the 5, the 7, the 9, the things like that, that's what you kind of visualize when trying to play over a chord, if that makes sense. You're visualizing actual chord tones, not any other notes outside the scale. For example, I don't have a 2 in here, I don't have a 6 in here, I don't have a 7 in here unless I'm trying to aim for like a 7 shape from an arpeggio. I just have my 1, my 3, my 5. I don't even have a 4 in here. So if I'm playing a scale shape in this key, A major, what I want to do is land on those notes, and I'll kind of visualize that shape of that arpeggio and that chord shape. And I'm not playing those notes in succession all the time. What I'm doing is I'm playing and try to aim for those notes, the target notes. And one tip I'll give you straight from Marcos Fogli, an amazing guitarist out of Italy, highly recommend you check him out, is he hardly ever plays the root unless his musical statement is done, because he thinks of it as a conversation. You have a conversation until the point is made, right? Until you receive all the info you want. Then you're done. Well, that's the root note. Your conversation happens in the other notes around the chord. So if I want to play a solo or just mess around improvising, I'm hitting other notes on the way to the main chord tones. That would be like a bluesy, dominant 7th. Okay, so I landed on the 3rd right there instead of the root, because my musical statement might not have been done at that point. Okay, so these are some of the things we're answering here on the live stream that have to deal with guitar solos. Let's go back to the chat real quick, kind of see what's going on there. I do not know why the chat is not appearing. I've got the chat box ready to go. I don't know why it's not showing up here. Maybe I need to connect. Maybe it's because I don't have I'm going through Restream and not through one channel. That may be what it is. But anyway, let's go back to the chat here. Guitar Edux, I've been listening to Satriani a little bit more recently, starting to hear general patterns and intervals. Yes, Satriani is another good guy for just simple intervals. One of my favorites that I would suggest you listen to is called 10 Words. Melody is so super easy. It's in C. Very easy, a lot of pentatonic stuff there, major pentatonic, and he is using those different intervals for just a really simple melody. It's amazing how simple a melody you can come up with. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It doesn't have to be, you know, shreddy metal, fast, super fast Paul Gilbert type of licks. Usually you start simple, and then from there it inspires you to craft something bigger. Don't worry about trying to overthink it. Don't worry about trying to create the best, most perfect solo in the world. There is no such thing. Create what comes first, and then you can flesh it out. Okay, usually you have just bones, a skeleton. Then you can put muscles on it, and it can walk, it can move, it can, you know, it can start walking around on its own, and that's when it becomes emotional. That's when it becomes expressive to other people, and it kind of touches other people a bit more. Give me just a second here. That's fine, Sky Prop, we're just chatting. I'm going to tune my guitar real quick. I want to make sure I just heard a flat note. So, and incidentally, if you're wondering, I usually try to tune any floating tremolo like as if it was a Floyd Rose. And I do a video on that. It's one of my more popular videos here on the channel, on YouTube, on how to tune a Floyd Rose tremolo system. You definitely want to check that out if you're having problems with that. You don't know how to get it going. A lot of people have found help from that video. Okay, so check that out. How to tune a Floyd Rose tremolo. I don't know the exact wording, but somewhere along those lines. But that usually just gives me the best stability, the best balance when I do that with a floating tremolo. Okay, so let's look at the chat again and kind of continue through this. Satriani. You've been listening to Satriani. Cage. I'm more of a feel and sound player. Okay, so caged. That's what I was talking about. The caged method of playing. And I was kind of referring to that a little bit when I was playing all these different shapes. If you think of caged, it basically is the shapes of an open chord. So if I play C, A, G, C, A, G, E, and then D, basically you can play any chord up the neck in that order of letters, cage. So if I play cage starting with C here, the next letter is A, so I do this A shape, but I have to move it up for the root note is here. I have to move that note 1, 2, 3, so that my root note is here. That's A, but we're playing a C, but the shape is A. The next one is G, so we got to find a C note here, and we play a G. It's hard to play this G like I was doing here. So I typically just play either the top part or the bottom. And that kind of might look familiar because that's what I was playing earlier with a long A down here. This is a G shape though. Okay. G, and the next one is E. Easy one. It looks like an F because we play an F down here, but it's actually an E. And then the last one is D, which is the one I showed you earlier. You don't have to play this exactly. I usually play this shape like this. It's just easier for my fingers to do that rather than have to reshape a D shape here, you know. And then we start all over again back on C, starting at the root. That's what I was doing earlier. This arpeggio shape was actually a C shape. So basically it's a way of finding your way around the neck using those shapes, and they're always connected by a root note. So here's a root note, C, root note for A. If I extended that, that's the G shape. There's the root note here for E shape, and here the root note for the D shape. And some people use that for looking at scales. They know that this D shape, for example, may be this shape of the scale here. Okay, now I didn't think of that myself. I just kind of knew what scale shape I was using. I didn't think of it as being, okay, well, that's the D of the cage. A lot of people do it like that, or they'll say, okay, they'll memorize where the roots are. They'll memorize the root notes, and that's their kind of cage method, because those are the root notes for all the cage shapes. That's a totally different topic that I do not have time to talk about right now. If you're interested in that, that's one way, a very good way of visualizing the fretboard. The two main ways are caged and 3-note per string, which is more of a shredder style thing. And I know some of those shapes as well, but I'm trying to stick to one right now so that I can see it a certain way. And then if I want to, I can go back and implement some of the other things that I know. But I would suggest looking at that as well. Let's continue with the chat here. Guitar Edux. I put off cage for 16 years. It really helps demystify the parts of the fretboard you don't use that often. It also makes finding notes a lot quicker. Exactly, like I just did there, going up and down the fretboard. Skyprop. True. Same here. Same here with me also. Eric Johnson, and Eric here is hitting on some of that ATM at the moment. Okay, I think that's what you're talking about. Yeah, some of the Eric Johnson stuff. A lot of his stuff is pentatonics. I'm not exactly sure if he uses caged or what his whole system is, because I know it's pentatonic, a lot of it is. Double K321, thanks for joining. If you're playing a pentatonic major, are you thinking about the scale degree? Oh, the intervals, you mean, I think. No, not necessarily. If I'm playing major pentatonic, like for example, I'm not thinking about the scale degree. I'm thinking about the shape, and the main degree I'm looking at is the root. Or my roots. Now, eventually, once I get comfortable where I'm at, I try to think about the intervals. Tom Quayle really opened my eyes as far as visualizing the fretboard using interval shapes and what they look like. And I'm kind of using some of that, so I know my fifth is below my one. There's my fifth. My third is right here and here. So I'm not really looking at my sixth or my seventh or anything like that right now. I'm kind of training myself to look for those triad intervals. 1, 3, 5. Okay, so, excuse me, I see the shape, but I'm also, if I want to land somewhere, I'm trying to remember what the note sounds like. So if I want to land on the fifth, I'm on A. I know it has a certain sound. I know a third has a certain sound. So, yes, and to a certain extent, I am looking at the interval shapes and the third degrees and things like that. But there's not a whole lot of time to be thinking about that. Mostly, I'm just trying to see the whole shape as it is on the fretboard. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Double K, if you want to make a big jump skipping 2 pentatonic boxes, do you think about sliding through the boxes, or do you just use your memorize the fretboard knowledge and go to the right note? That's a good question. If I wanted to skip 2 pentatonic boxes, most of the time I'm kind of playing through the shape. So, for example, if I'm here, so I'm kind of seeing the shape there, of the pentatonic. And I'm not landing on an A. I should be looking at the A and the root note and kind of landing on the right spot. I should be doing that. But that's not what I'm doing. For me, I think the root notes is more powerful than looking at the shapes, maybe. Because if you can always land on the right note if you know the right note. So... then I was looking at the root notes. But like what happened when I got up here, I got on the wrong note. So when I land on the root note, I have to remember if it's on a certain string, then I'm in a certain shape. So if I'm on the G note, or excuse me, the G string, and my ring finger is there, and I'm in this area, then I've got to realize that it's the fifth box of pentatonic. If I'm on the D string, I'm in the third position. That's the major scale. If I'm on pentatonic, it'd be this. Now, this is the D string, but it also is the D string if I'm on the second position. So the difference there is which finger am I on. If I'm on the first finger, then obviously the shape has to be past these fingers. If I'm on the pinky or the third finger, then the shapes that I'm looking at is back here, behind that finger. Okay, so they share the same root note on the same string. It just depends on where I'm starting. Here I'm starting with middle finger. And there's that. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm seeing there. Okay, shedding some light, good. Sky Prop, appreciate that. Slide a lot like your example. I find myself doing that a la Satch. Yeah, Satch does a lot of slides. He likes to slide. He likes to do a lot of bluesy bends. You'll hear Satch doing a lot of bluesy stuff. He really loves doing that. So I think I'm caught up to the chat. Let's check real quick if there's anything else on this list here. The other thing I noticed, I wanted to play a solid solo. Well, I've given you all kinds of tips on how to do that. And like I said, if you want to learn even more tips on creating not just a solid solo, but a creative, expressive, melodic solo, then definitely check out my guitar course, The Creative Guitarist. There are links in the description below. You should be able to find that there very easily. There's even a free resource guide to kind of give you some ideas on this, and that will take you to the course when you're ready to kind of explore it a little bit further. And using scales, we've kind of been talking about that today, so I think I've kind of covered that adequately. So the last thing is, I have trouble coordinating my picking hand with my fretting hand. Synchronization is definitely an issue when playing, and for me, a lot of it just comes down to practice. And you could actually practice not just scales, but I would suggest practicing sequences in scales. So if I go back to A, sequences are a great way to sound more musical and a great way to memorize a scale while you're doing this, because you really have to think of the whole shape. And it's also a great way to coordinate your left and right hands. So for example, and I'm just considering doing alternate picking only. I'm not going to do any economy picking, not doing any hammer-ons. I'm just going to do straight alternate picking, beginning with a down stroke. And don't even worry about the whole 6 strings. Just work with that one octave. Right? So the next thing is sequences. So an example is, let's just do a 2-note scale. Let's do 3-note sequences. 1, 2, 3. And we're going to go back to the second note. So I'm starting with the first, and each time I'm stair-stepping up to the next note. Keep that not stopping in between each one. I want to keep maybe a little slow metronome going, like maybe even 60 beats a minute. I mean, something really slow, 60, 70, 80, somewhere around in there. And you could go click, click, click. watch for that. You're going to be thinking multiple things, and you really want to focus on one thing at a time. The first thing you're going to want to focus on, obviously, is the picking, making sure when you leave a note is when you pick the next note. But also, that pinky will tend to try to lift, and some of these other fingers maybe too, will tend to try to lift off the fingerboard like way out here. We don't want that, okay? So we don't want the fingers like lifting way off. So if you'll watch me do this again. My pinky's lifting a little bit, but it's not going like way out here. The closer you are to the frets when you're playing, the less you have to move and the less mistakes you're going to make. Because you're right there, you don't have to come from way out here and really land really hard. That creates tension. And whatever happens in this hand generally tends to happen in this hand too. So you'll get all kinds of tension in both arms. You'll be all seized up, and it won't be a good thing. So stay relaxed. Watch your posture. Very easy and steady on the pick stroke. And you're thinking about wanting to get my fingers minimally lifted off the fretboard at all times. Nothing really extravagant. Even my pinky's here and not using, try to keep it pretty close to the fretboard. For example, when I lift up, I have to come right back down. So why do I lift way out here if I don't have to come right back, right? So you want to practice the minimal finger movement, keep them close to the frets, close to the strings, so they can come down there really easily. You won't be tensed up. And also your picking movement. Now that's a movement of 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You can do 4s. When you see a lot of these shredders doing these huge licks, okay, those are different sequences as well. In that example, if I start that with the major scale, I'm going to go back here to the previous. 1, 2, 3, up, back, down. So little things like that. And sometimes you hear a lot of people just doing the same notes on the same string twice before moving on. Okay, that's for fast runs. That's a really good one. That doing the same note. And usually they'll play the first note. They'll play the first string first that they're starting with. And then they'll do the repeat on the next one. Okay. Rather than going and then beginning. They'll start one time on the high string, then start the repeats. And that downstroke each time resets the beat. Count 1, for example. A really good example of this is Paul Gilbert's Technical Difficulties when he does this huge lick. Okay, so that's the repeats. Okay, and that is a scale shape. I mean, that's just a 3-note per string. I'm looking at the major scale shape, 3-note per string from the A. 2 whole steps on the E and A string. Then a whole half-step whole step on the D and G. Then a whole step, I have to shift forward. Then I'll do a whole step, half step. And for E minor, he's basically playing G major because they're the same notes, okay? So he's playing that G major shape in the key of E minor. Okay. So let's see. Anything else? That would be what I would suggest for picking hand kind of coordination. Okay. Let's go over the chat one more time real quick. Shedding some light, slide a lot, find myself doing a lot of stuff via Satch. Okay, looks like, hopefully, let me make sure. Okay, looks like, all right, looks like, oh man, is this actually going to stay working like it's supposed to? I went for a little over an hour, and it looks like I'm still going on YouTube, so good, that's really good. So, I just wanted to encourage you guys, whenever you're soloing and things like this, take these things to heart. All good, go ahead on. Thanks, SkyPro. Take these things to heart. Definitely rewatch this video over and over again. Okay, it will be available to you so that you can do that. I'm not sure about there's some more solo videos I kind of want to do. Some of them may be just for members of the or purchasers, customers of the Creative Guitarist, which you can find by going to ericbay.com/tcg or /courses, whichever one you want to look at, in the Creative Guitarist. You can watch this over and over again on YouTube, on Twitch, and on the Creative Guitarist, and you will definitely want to be coming back to this because there are loads of ideas here. And I'm happy to finally be able to do this as a supplement. Like I said, I've got other videos that I would like to do on this subject because I've got more questions that were answered. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing them here and maybe reserving them just for the course or what. But these are available to you. This one is, at least. And you will definitely want to go back to this over and over again, okay? So before you leave, before we shut this thing down, I've got another video that I want you to watch. And if you're watching this later, I'll have a card up here in the top left-hand, top right-hand of the screen. It will take you to the next logical place, I would say, to start working on some of these solos, okay? So if you'll definitely watch that video, I'll have that linked here somewhere. I may have 2 videos, okay? Or a video and a playlist or something like that, just to give you the next step, okay? So make sure you check out those videos, and if you like this video, give that video a thumbs up. I really appreciate it, and I'm going to go ahead and head on out of here. Don't forget to click those videos, and you can be taken to the next one. Thanks to everybody in the chat for watching and for participating. I'm glad to be on the live stream again. Look forward to doing some more of these very soon. So we will see you guys on the next video, whatever that may be. I've got some gear videos I'll be doing pretty soon. Some prizes I won not long ago at a guitar solo competition. But until next time, I'm going to call it quits, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks so much for watching. God bless, and remember, keep creating.